welcome. My name is Sandra Brownray, and as a volunteer with Braver Angels, I will be your MC tonight. Can you hear me okay all the way in the back? Good. All right. This event is hosted by your at-large council members, David Lineweber, Brian Risley, and Lynette Pearl Iverson. And there is clearly a great deal of interest in this event. We're still seating people, so that's going to happen while I'm going through the introduction. Our challenge is to make sure that everyone is heard tonight. At the same time, we honor the time commitment that we have. So time is going to be tight, and we're going to be managing it pretty rigorously. So, before we get started, how many of you have heard of Braver Angels? Raise your hand. That's not bad. How many of you are members or partners with Braver Angels? Okay, that's fantastic. For those of you who are new to us, Braver Angels is a nationwide civic organization whose mission is to inspire and equip Americans to practice courageous citizenship across political and community differences through skill building, convening, and collaborative action. In practice, that means creating spaces where people who disagree can come together, listen carefully, find common ground where it exists, and better understand and respect where differences remain. Tonight is one example of convening of our mission in action. This town hall is designed to support respectful dialogue, listening to understand, and constructive engagement between community members and city leadership. By choosing to be here tonight, you are already practicing courageous citizenship. You're giving your time, you're bringing your perspective, and you're showing a willingness to engage your neighbors and your city leaders in a constructive and productive way. So, we also have a number of those city leaders and staff members with us tonight. If you're at any of these tables, the chances are 100% that someone from the city will hear your exchanges tonight, and that's why we're doing it in this format. It's not the same thing as having a one-to-one monologue at a typical town hall where you're giving a public comment. This is a dialogue. So with that in mind, I'd like to introduce your hosts first, and I'm asking you to stand if you're not already, but you already are. David Lineweber is council member at large. Lynette Pearl Iverson is the council president, also a council member at large. And Brian Risley is the council president pro tem, also an at-large council member. Hold your applause, because we have more. The other city leaders and staff who are in attendance, Nancy Hinjum, would you please stand? Council member District 5, Kimberly Gold. I saw her a minute ago.
Was here.
Oh, we'll come back to Kimberly. Natalie Lavelle, Colorado Springs City Auditor. Chelsea Gondek, CEO of the Downtown Partnership. And Amy Cox, who is the Chief Housing and Homelessness Officer for the City of Colorado Springs. So now you can give them a round of applause. Did I miss one?
It does speak.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, we have Brandy Williams joining us also. She is District 3. So,
Hi, Brandy.
and I did want to say, just briefly, so you understand why it's the 3 of us, we don't really have a district. We represent the whole city. And then there's 6 district representatives that represent those neighborhoods. And so those town halls are generally focused on that particular region of the city. What we're going to be looking at is more large scale, what's happening for the whole city. So that's some of why it's the 3 of us, because we want our moment to have our own town hall. And so that's kind of what we've got going on. So everyone kind of understand how our government works.
And there are 2 more people I'd like to thank. Alex Ryden is your Senior Public Communications Manager, and Sam Friedman's in the back there. He is your Constituent Response Specialist, and they've been invaluable in getting this set up and making it work. So please give them a round of applause also. share how this evening came together. I was at a meeting recently that was hosted by Reclaiming Civility, which is a wonderful organization that is based here in Colorado Springs. It's run by Lori Leander and Lisa Brandt, who are both here tonight. And David was talking to me afterwards about the issue of polarization in the Colorado Springs community. And he said, you guys need to come in, facilitate a community-wide conversation. And so, for me, that is courageous leadership to step into a place that could be painful, could be awkward, could be a little bit problematic, and say, no, what we need to do is we need to come together, share the diversity of ideas in this room, and then, once we've done that, then start finding solutions. We're not here tonight to solve homelessness, for instance. We're here tonight to learn how to have a conversation. So, not only is David courageous in doing this, but when I look around and I see this many district council members, I'm really surprised and pleased because it takes a lot of courage to come, whether it's your district, whether you're at large, and whether you're city staff. So I'm very respectful of the people who are attending, and I'm also respectful of your leader. This is innovative. I'm not seeing this in other cities in Colorado yet, so you guys are setting the example. Okay. The restrooms are back there. The vending machines are at the front desk. If you need to get up and move around for any reason, that's fine. Just kind of be quiet. But as I mentioned before, we have a spectacular level of interest tonight. We have a full room. And so in order for everyone to hear and be heard, it's very possible that we may go over for a few minutes. So if you're able to stay late, if you have to leave, we apologize. It's a high-quality problem, but it's still a problem. So bear with us. Let's talk about the goals for tonight. Our goal is that you leave better understanding one another beyond your differences. The goal of tonight's town hall, again, is not to solve complex issues. It's to have that conversation. It's to create the opportunity for thoughtful dialogue between neighbors who do not agree, and to step into that uncomfortable space and listen and understand. That'll end up with healthy, productive community dialogue. You're going to freely, honestly, and civilly share your thoughts and concerns about your local priorities that your council members need to know about. And then you experience being heard by your city leaders, and your city council members have an opportunity to better understand your perspective and the values and the concerns that inform it. And so what are ground rules? We're here to understand others and explain our views. We're not here to convince anybody to change their mind. Let's speak for ourselves and not speak for some outside group. Let's stick to the spirit of the activities that we've designed for tonight. So the example is, if the topic is what we each learn from listening to the others at the table, do not take that opportunity, do not give in the temptation to say, well, I just want to add one more thing about what I feel about this. And then otherwise, it's standard stuff. We take turns, we don't interrupt, we listen to everyone, and we open up space for the quieter people at the table to share their perspectives. We're respectful, and there's no eye rolling, there's no loud sighs when someone's speaking. In other words, we bring our best selves to the dialogue, and we invite the best selves for others. So, do we all agree on these ground rules as I have laid them out? I am old. It is late by my timing, so I need something louder. Can you say yes when I ask you, do you agree to these ground rules as I've laid them out?
Yes.
That's pretty good. Okay. All right. We in Braver Angels are guided by what we call the Braver Angels Way, which is a shared set of behavioral principles that we feel enable us to bridge the partisan divide with our fellow citizens. It combats affective polarization, which is a fancy way to say the tendency of political groups or community groups to oppose each other and view each other as enemies. We want to strengthen our democratic republic, and we want to demonstrate how to be, as we refer to it, courageous citizens. So, please take a moment and take this seriously. We state our views freely and fully without fear.
Okay.
We treat people who disagree with us with honesty, dignity, and respect. We welcome opportunities to engage those with whom we disagree. We believe all of us have blind spots, and none of us are not worth talking to. We seek to disagree accurately, avoiding exaggerations and stereotypes. We look for common ground where it exists, and if possible, we find ways to work together. We believe that in disagreements, both sides share and learn. And in Braver Angels, neither side is teaching the other or giving feedback on how to think or say things differently. So one last thing, we'll be taking pictures throughout the night. We do have some other folks here, media, and we'd also love to get a group picture for those hardy souls who are here at the end. So if you are willing to participate in that, Terry will be our last moderator, and he will call you up to the podium and we'll get a picture. Okay? So now I'll hand this over to Councilman at Large David Weinweber to continue with his opening remarks.
Hey, I just want to say that we're really excited that you're here. This is really a unique format, and we want to hear more about what your experience is going to be today. So please make sure at the end, I really mean this, make sure you comment at the end what your experience is. And as we're going through, think about some things that you might want to say to them. So we just want to do better, and that's kind of what the goal is how do we do better? Instead of just yelling at each other or whatever it might be, we want to kind of come together and just create opportunities that we can actually dialogue so that we can hear what your concerns are, and then we can bring those back, discuss them, work out all the details. I think that's what's really the aspect. So we're so happy for everyone to be here tonight, right? And we're very happy on where we are, right, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. Thanks. I just wanted to take a minute to thank the YMCA for allowing us to use this space. The YMCA has been a tremendous partner to the City of Colorado Springs for many, many years through youth programs, outdoor swimming pools, running the senior center, for example. And this is just one more example of them being a great partner to the city by allowing us to use this space tonight. So if you see an employee of the YMCA on their way out, be sure to thank them and let them know how much you appreciate what they do for this community. It really means a lot. I was the board chair for the Y for a number of years, and having seen the inside of how it operates, it really means a lot to me that we could host this year. And I also want to take a minute to thank all of you for taking time out of your evenings and being here with us. As David said, we really hope that this will be beneficial for all of you, and certainly we hope that this will be beneficial for us, so we can take some great learnings and great information back and really see how we can implement the comments and the thoughts that we heard tonight as we consider the future of our city. So with that, thank you very much for being here.
And with that, I'm going to pre-announce, we have a second already planned, correctly, and I'm trying to remember the date. July 27th, we're planning to do one in 21C, the library. So we're going to be up there doing the same kind of format. We'll do the same, really just the same kind of stuff, and Braver Angels will kind of come up with what the topics that goes up during the registration process, and then we'll tackle those and have that opportunity. Now, while you guys are all engaged, you're going to see me, Brian, and Lynette kind of walking around. We're not snooping, we're listening. So invite us in. We're just a neighbor just like you. We all live here. This is where we love. And so we're anxious to hear what your comments are. So we'll be participating in each of your tables as we go. And we'll probably have some of the other council people that are involved also too. So anyway, thanks again for being here.
Hello, I'm Barbara Hanson. Is it too loud? I will be your moderator for this next session of the town hall. Before we get started, actually, we are going to ask you to just get to know each other. You've gotten to know a little bit about Braver Angels, a little bit about who's hosting this event tonight. We'd like you to take a minute to get to know yourselves at the table. So you'll be working with these people in a small group. So we'll take 5 minutes for you to introduce yourself to your table mates, your name, where you live, and why you came tonight. Okay? So your name, where you live, and why you came tonight. You've had enough time to get to know your table mates. We do have some tables that are really big, a lot of people there, and we have some that there are fewer people. So it would be nice, you'll get more time to talk if you're at a table with fewer people. So I invite you, anyone who would like to shift.
Any of those bigger tables want to have volunteers to people to this one? This table's a little like that.
Thank you. So in a few minutes, we are going to begin some small group discussion. Can I have your attention, please? Hello? Well, in a few minutes, we'll begin some small group discussions. The first breakout session, we're going to talk about polarization in your community. Then we'll have a short break, and then we'll talk about homelessness in the community. So these are topics that can bring out some very strong feelings and differing viewpoints. And so because of that, we want to just walk through a couple of little skills that Braver Angels likes to practice to help us have better conversations. So the first skill is listen to understand. When you are listening to someone, please try to refrain from judging or evaluating or comparing what that person is saying to your own views. You really want to think about, if you're listening to someone and thinking about what you're going to say, you're probably not hearing very much of what that other person is saying. So please try to resist those urges. Listen for the values and the concerns that must be underlying their perspective, the life experiences that they have. And maybe you find a point of agreement with that person, even if you don't share their perspective fully. The second skill we like to practice in Braver Angels is what we call acknowledge and agree. And this is simply reflecting, sort of testing that you understand what that person is saying to you. So they say something to you and you reflect back to them what you understood. We do this sometimes, we just say, well, I hear you saying, is that whatever? Is that correct? That's just one way to reflect back that you are listening, that you are understanding what they're saying. You might ask a question, other questions of curiosity, like, oh, well, I hear what you're saying. Where is that coming from? What life experience or values or what has shaped that view? So we always acknowledge and maybe even provide an agree statement before we share our own perspective. So those are two quick little tastes of what we do in Braver Angels, the skills we use in Braver Angels. So now we're going to move into the heart of the town hall. And this is where we're going to set the stage for your breakout session. First, we would like you to nominate a reporter in your group, someone who is going to listen to the key themes, the key concerns that you all express, and then is able to report out those concerns and ideas to the larger group afterward. We would like you to, if possible, nominate a timekeeper. Our goal is for everyone around the table to have a chance to share on the two questions that we're going to give you. So a timekeeper will help to keep things moving along. Right? So some of your tables have 8 people, some of them have 4 people. So you're going to have a different amount of time per table to share out. So again, if you want to a little more time, you go to a table that has fewer people. Okay, so we will have 10 minutes for this exercise. So if you're at a table of 8, you're probably going to be a minute and a half to share out. And if you're at a table of 4 or 5, you'll have almost 2 minutes to share out. So the questions we're going to ask you to reflect on are about polarization. Polarization isn't just disagreement. It's when differences lead to distrust and lead to not understanding and not liking the other person who shares a different view. So keep that polarization concept in mind. It happens beyond just the political realm. It happens in all kinds of social issues. So the questions that we would like you to consider, each person at the table will take, again, depending on the size of your table, 1 to 2 minutes to say, what are the concerns about polarization? What are your concerns about polarization issues in your community? And what is shaping them for you? What are your values, maybe your experiences you've had that have shaped why these particular concerns are high on the list? Does that make sense? All right, so let's go ahead and begin. Again, we will have 10 minutes for this exercise. Please do choose a reporter who will report out at the end. And fun. Time for our share out. Now's a chance for that reporter to stand up and share what were the key themes, the key concerns that your neighbors have expressed. So again, we have about 20 minutes for this particular section. We have 10 tables, okay? And we would like to make some time for the council members to reflect back what they heard from you, okay? So that means I'm going to ask each reporter to just give us 1 to 1.5 minute overview of the concerns that were expressed and what shaped those concerns. Okay, so succinctness will be at a premium. It will be highly valued here. All right, so the more time we have, if we can save 3 or 4 minutes at the end for the council people, that would be great. So, all right, we have a starter already. Thank you. So,
thank you. I am Nancy Hunter. I am a council member, but I was the reporter in our group. And so I heard the concerns about polarization from a teacher. Elementary school kids are getting into polarizing conversations. That actually stunned me. People in all kinds of contexts, church, communities, etc. But the common thing that was the impact of the polarization that I heard was it stops learning, it stops community building, it stops relationships, and it stops understanding. How's that for less than a minute?
thank you, Nancy. Thank you. Another volunteer, another reporter. Please come forward.
Daniel Way, I'm a neighbor in our group. The thing about polarization, we decided on one and shared definition. I would agree that it is when you shut your mind down on your things you have.
I hear you.
Hello? Test. Thank you. So polarization, you're thinking you think you have all the answers already, and you basically shut down hearing other arguments. So we decided that was a good definition. And then we had a community advocate here who's brought a really good point and blew my mind for a second. As an example, community or public safety is community centers being related to public safety. And I was just like, whoa. And then we got talking about how avoiding polarization is keeping your mind open to what other people are going to say, or at least hearing it so you can find other ideas. When you're polarized, you don't hear those other solutions. And a lot of our forums outside of this excellent forum tend to push us towards polarization. And we're thankful for this evening.
Thank you, Daniel. So we have heard of master's group education, we've heard public safety as key themes that have been coming up that are polarizing. Education meaning young people in the schools.
Hi, my name is, I'm the reporter for our group before I realized I'd have to do the public speaking part, but here we are. We talked in our group about anti-growth and how we can work to mitigate that mindset. Like, why can't we look at this as being a welcoming? Because this is how we started. We are a community that has transplants and how can we keep that spirit growing. How to help create a process that helps homeowners and builders instead of creating more roadblocks and obstacles. People want to be homeowners and we want to help make that process a reality. We talked about polarization in our schools, in our communities, and how it's preventing real things from being accomplished because we're so concerned about agendas. We talked about politics and agendas in general and how that prevents us from focusing on building communities and really addressing the needs of communities.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Zaria, also a neighbor. Our group talked a lot about polarization not necessarily being the issue, but that we need to come up with policies that work for everyday people, and that if people support those policies, then maybe polarization will decrease. And then we also talked about the need for community as well, that like we're just kind of starved for community, and maybe like a possible block party would be a way to kind of alleviate some of the loneliness that people are experiencing. But then in that same kind of contrary to that, like it can be really hard to meet with people who don't fundamentally like respect the humanity of certain people, and that can really make it hard to bridge divides. So like we have to start there foundationally before we go anywhere else. So that's I think the gist of it.
Good afternoon, my name is Sonia Esquivel, and I'm the reporter and spokesperson for this wonderful group. With polarization, I think we have to take a step back, and before we can even begin a conversation, we have to recognize our own biases, because we all have them. Once we recognize that we all have our own biases, next thing would be the respect. Because we have seen publicly where our leaders have been treated with disrespect. They haven't been treated with dignity and respect, and that's what the public sees. And that's important when we talk about polarization and begin to talk about those type of issues. For example,
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt. We're really not here tonight to provide solutions or try to solve problems. We really want to hear from you. What is your experience in your communities with polarization? So if you could frame it in that way, that would be great.
okay. So these are the 5 topics that we talked about. The city council pay versus the CEO of the utility. CEO is not representative of Colorado Springs. And also the homelessness crises that we have. I believe that's a topic of concern. And the development polarizes people. Building up our single family homes. We need sustainable options. And going back to all of this is all creating a culture of respect.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Yes.
Hi, I'm Renee Alba, and I'm a neighbor. So it was interesting in our group, we had a couple of people who don't feel polarization, and just, I thought that was a good conversation to have, that they felt comfortable and they felt welcome or because we feel polarized. I think that's a good answer to that question. But in terms of polarization, one of us felt that some of the same people are talking about the issues over and over again in different capacities, and maybe some other voices could be brought into the discussion, and I think that's happening here, so I think that's great. Another point of polarization is some of these email, neighborhood lists, or social media lists. People get into these really polarized discussions on issues that haven't been researched or haven't been experienced personally by these people. It's just the buzzwords, and then they jump on, and it gets meaner and meaner, and that's really keeping us polarized. And then there are a couple of neighborhoods at our table in Florida where people are lonely, not necessarily lonely, but don't feel connected to their neighborhood, would love more interaction, and so there's a little bit of polarization going on in some of our neighborhoods. Thanks.
I am Janita Davis of the Bride Southeast, and our table talked about how polarization stems from misinformation. And social media has been a big impact on the information that we have been receiving and cause negativity, and maybe it's a good idea to stay off of it. And then we also talked about how different opinions have caused distrust in our government, and there are a lot of naysayers who talk down, people who, based on where you're from, what side you take on issues. And in the Southeast, we are very concerned about gentrification and are we looking at what the issues really are? Or are we just looking at how much money we can make? Are we looking at what we really need? So, thank you very much.
Well, I have to agree so far around our table, this is going better than any HOA meeting I've ever been to. My name is Randy Trussell, this is my wife Cindy. We have a great group of people, very diverse around our table. We actually live on Glen Eagle, and we don't have a voice in Colorado Springs. Nobody represents us out there. It seems like we're in a desert politically. But what happens here does bleed over into our community. Flying Horse, Glen Eagle, every little pocket of neighborhoods that have to hear music that we don't want to. Not so much this year, because there's only 14 of them, down to 13. But that's a polarizing issue. We all agree here, we don't care what your political opinions are or what your beliefs are, it doesn't matter. You can't be my friend, doesn't mean we can't have a civil discussion. And that's what we're missing. We just can't get to a table with two people with diverse opinions and talk about something and try to meet in the middle and find some common ground. But we have a list of things that are polarizing. Number one, the safety. We were talking about, we park our cars out here that we have to pay to park until 8 o'clock now. I didn't know that. I thought it used to be 6 o'clock. But, safety is the primary function of government, is to keep its citizens safe. And their second priority is the infrastructure. And we all know we can't support the people that are here right now with our infrastructure, and we're trying to make Colorado Springs even bigger, and I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know how we're going to fill all those Coke bottles full of water when I have about a 5-minute window to water my yard every other day, or that ends in a T. I'm not sure. I'll have to look it up.
Okay, we have.
Thank you.
Oh, perfect timing. Thank you.
Over here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Renee Gonzalez, and I'm also a neighbor, District 4. Our table touched on what everybody else has said about respect and education was the two major ones that we have noticed in our neighborhoods, is that there's a lack of respect for different viewpoints, and education is extremely important, that we need to focus on our young people, not necessarily our little ones, but our high school kids that are getting ready to move on to the college. We need to give them more of a civics class of what's happening in our world today and how to function as an adult in those topics. That's what we talked about.
We have a table that did not go yet. This table here.
I love each other and want to become friends. Much to say. We had a concern about the Mesa, and you guys are not doing your job of looking at it close enough. Polarizing. That's what were the 4 main reasons why they wanted to get on. There was one answer, except economic. Something that I've been feeling since I became a senior citizen this year is the difference between 30-year-olds and 65-year-olds and being called old man when I grew up to, so that's that big polarizing.
Okay, thank you. So all tables have gone, correct? All right, we have maybe 2 minutes, 1 or 2 minutes. If anyone at your table, if you would like to also share, please, if you'd like to share beyond what your reporter shared, feel free to speak. Anyone? Everyone feels like you've had a chance to share?
Solve it or establish clarity, because those are two separate. With clarity, you don't have to define it.
Absolutely. Before you can solve anything, you have to have clarity on the problem. And so the goal of tonight really is to find clarity on what are the challenges, what are the polarizing concerns. And we're going to spend some time talking about one in particular after a quick break. But it's very important what you brought up, that we can't solve the problem tonight. But what we can do is understand where people are coming from and what the challenges are. So on that note, we're going to hand it over to the council members to kind of share with you what they've heard you all say this evening. So we have about 4 minutes for that.
Well, I had some really fascinating comments, and I think even though I only made it into this side of the room, I heard, as these tables reported out, there were some similar themes. And one of them that really stuck with me, I think one of the tables over here commented about social media, the role of social media, and how that has become a very polarizing and divisive platform. And I think that ties to some of the comments that I heard over here. I think Joyce made a comment about public safety, and that community centers are a central part of public safety. And when I tie those two comments together and think about how when people gather with each other in person like we are here, you treat each other in a different way than you do when you're on social media. And that's an interesting takeaway for me as it relates to how we become polarized. I think when you can sit across the table from somebody and you can express how you feel and why you feel that way, and you're holding yourself accountable by making eye contact with them and talking directly to them as opposed to hiding behind a monitor changes the dynamic and it changes the way that we interact with each other. So that, for me, is certainly one of the big takeaways, just the difference between being in person and face-to-face and hiding behind the screen. One of the other comments I heard was talking about housing and growth and affordability and the role of government regulation in those things. And that was an interesting series of comments for me because one of the comments in response to concerns about growth was regulatory oversight, and the comment was state regulation. That a lot of what we're dealing with locally is not decisions that we make in council. It's state regulatory oversight that's being pushed down by the state legislature. And that's unfortunate because we don't have any control over the state. Yet we have to deal with the blowback and the outcomes that we all see here locally. And so that's one of the reasons why I think a number of us have been pretty vocal on council about trying to maintain local control so that we can make decisions that benefit the community here locally. That creates polarization. We've got others outside of the community that are trying to push down regulatory oversight and causing a lot of problem.
So again, I apologize for trying to keep us on time, but I also want to respect that we only told you 2 hours, so I'm going to ask 2 minutes and then we have to move on.
Sure, I could probably keep it under 2 minutes. I agree with everything Councilman Pro Tem Risley said with the social media. It's easy to be a keyboard warrior. It's much harder to sit on that dais and make very hard decisions based on criteria that nobody else gets to see. And we are a republic of elected officials. You elected us to make those specific decisions based on the criteria that we get, but the blowback is if you didn't like the decision based on information you don't have, and again, it's just jumping to the judgment. Listening to, what are our youth and our teens going to grow up in this type of a world? Again, I think civics is so very important. Teaching kids how to actually communicate rather than just on their phones, but have a communication, literally a communication with somebody. It's, you go anywhere you hear it. So I think that is key to our future. In our discussion, one thing that came up that wasn't reported out because it was the first topic that came up that's very important that I think everybody in this room remembers. Because of polarization, we had a city council member resign because a group of citizens didn't like his predecessor's decision, and it became so polarizing that we lost a really good council member that made really good decisions other than a one topic for one group. Some more education, that was very polarizing for our community, very hard for this council. So that's where it's come.
Yeah, so for me, just to kind of wrap this all up, I heard that I think as humans, we just lost the ability to have face-to-face connections. I don't know, there's a shyness about going and knocking on your neighbor's door. We need to find bold ways of being able to do that. We've got to kind of like extend ourselves. I heard that from several tables about just the lack of face-to-face. And the opposite of what's happening is this isolation and loneliness. I'm a big mental health guy. Isolation and loneliness is what's really killing us. And so we need to find a way within us to feel like it's okay to knock on that door. And then the other thing I'd like to say is, if you have an organization, there's a OHV motocross group in town, and they said, "Hey, we want to talk to you." I said, "Okay, can you come to our meeting?" I said, "Okay." There you go. That's how that happens. So it's not that you can come to council. I mean, at 10, whatever the time's going to be, which we don't ever really know. Just invite us. Invite us to your group. Find your district, person and say, "Hey, we got a group of people here, and we'd love to get together with you. Can you come over?" And I think you'll be surprised. We'll probably find ways to do this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Let's give a round of applause to you all. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your concerns. Thank you for your patience when I had to say, appreciate that. Now we are going to take just a quick 1-minute break. You've been sitting a long time, and we just need you we want to recharge your minds, and we're going to do that through recharging your bodies through a little movement. So if you are able, please stand and maybe give a few shoulder rolls one direction, go the other direction. You'll be amazed at how this makes you feel. Raise up one arm real high to the sky, raise to the ceiling, get a little stretch. Now the other arm, get a little stretch, okay? Maybe you do some wrist circles, some foot circles, and if you get about 30 more seconds to just move. Just
tonight about the topic of homelessness in your community. We've already talked about the idea of polarization, the impact on everything, right? So just kind of keep in mind that we're not talking about how to resolve the issue. We're talking about how do you feel? Why is this impacting you? Do you have a story of how this personally is impacting you in your life? Maybe in the past, maybe something that you see coming in the future, but nonetheless, we're not talking about issues here. We're not trying to resolve anything. We're just trying to hear other people's ideas of why this particular topic is important to them. So just like in the last breakout session, your group's going to have about 2 minutes per person to discuss the following 2 issues. So again, tonight's topic is homelessness in your community. The questions to consider at your table are these. What is at the heart of this issue for you? If you can, please share a personal life experience. Again, homelessness, right? I know it was interesting tonight. We had an experience where we had a lot of people registering at the last moment because somebody said something about social media. There was a message that came out that we were reading tonight on data centers. So you can kind of see how things are kind of moving around sometimes, right?
right? So the topic tonight is homelessness, right, in your community. What values do you hold, and what, if any, concerns or reservations you have about this issue?
I have to bring up, I'm just going to talk about it.
Oh,
We actually turned away 40 people that were here for data centers. So it's all social media generated. So that just gives you an idea. Well, where do we put them? We have to be organized, and we want a conversation.
yeah, no, and that's understandable. I mean, information's kind of that way, right? So I appreciate everybody being patient with this. You know, hopefully you'll find some common ground on this idea of homelessness. So this is what you're going to be doing in your group. What common values and concerns does your group have on homelessness in your community? So, you basically have some pretty good time here, right around 30 minutes within your group, right? So that means everyone's going to have a chance, minute and a half, 2 minutes within your group, maybe even a little bit more on this one, to be able to talk about this idea of homelessness. Again, why is this important to you? Is there something in your life that's moved you to this particular position on the idea of homelessness? Right? So this is what we just to give you an idea, we actually sent out a registration and we asked a number of different questions. I think there were like 8 or 9 of them, I think, Sandra, whatever. And then we kind of looked around. I mean, we kind of looked through the results, and it was homelessness that took it by a long shot. So this is why we've why we've chosen this particular topic. So now we're going to hear from you in regards to tonight's topic. Group reporters will please take a couple of minutes at most to report a summary of your group's discussion, again, on what common values and concerns your group has on the topic of homelessness in your community. If there's still some time available, you can interchange, ask questions of each other's comments. That's very instructional because, again, the idea is to listen and then to acknowledge. So this is an opportunity to you kind of reinforce back and forth that idea of truly listening and then kind of acknowledging. That way everybody knows they've been heard. If you actually say something that they said, kind of reflect it back to them, that's a great reinforcement for that exercise. So anybody have any questions about this topic before we get started? I'm sorry? Oh yeah, sure. Well, what common values and concerns do your group have in homelessness? Yes?
Talking about people down on the luxury land, or talk about people that are stepping into drugs. It's a whole different, those are two different remedies. Which one are we talking about?
Well, that's a great idea. That's exactly what we're... Exactly. That's kind of the point of what we're trying to do tonight. We have to find terms, right? We have to agree on what that subject is about. What does that mean to you when you hear homelessness? That is so much about what we talk about when it comes to having a dialogue. It's kind of like, are we on the same page before we get started? It's kind of the point, right? So that's a great thing, Jim. That's exactly kind of where we're after. You can very right out front say, this is what my view is. Somebody else can come up with something else. But that's the point, is for us to begin the discussion on some common terms. That's extremely important. So thank you all for that. We'll go ahead and jump you into your groups right now. Have fun. We'll be watching. Oh, I'm sorry. Hard stop in terms of time. What's the hard stop on time? No, that's fine. I mean, on the clock. Okay, right around 25 after. Oh, that we need more than that. Yeah, about 25 after. 7:30. So, we want to hear from your reporters. So, this is an opportunity for each reporter in the group to share what they've learned and heard from the group. So, just take a couple of minutes, if you can, at the most, to kind of summarize what your group actually said tonight. That'd be great. going to be passing the mic around like we did before. So I hope you folks, your reporters, are ready to kind of share with the rest of the group. All right, now keep in mind, the idea is tonight we're not solving the problem. The idea is to look at the idea of homelessness and why it's so important in life. How is it impacting us directly? So hopefully those are what you're going to be responding to. So I'm going to ask people now to go ahead and raise their hand, whoever the reporters are. Oh, we got right away there.
Good evening, friends. I'm just going to start off by saying complex problems do not have simple solutions. Every single person in this room is going to have a different something to say. So our group, and you're going to hear these common values, I think more than anything, think with both our heart and our heads. A big thread at our table was giving a hand up, not a handout. So education around de-escalation and resources. We talked about resources and family, what resources we have, what resources are available, and then another thread that we had, quality. We want a quality of life. We want to feel safe walking down the street. We want to be proud of our city. And that is where homelessness affects a lot of us, is this quality of life. And then kind of really going around this, we're only as strong as our weakest link, but then going back down to hand up, not just a hand out.
Hi, it's me, Daniel. So our group had a really cool conversation about this. This hits close to home for me because a family member that experienced homelessness and actually died on the streets while on Blair. And so that brings up something we talked about is like spectrum, like types of homelessness. Is this close enough? I'm sorry. So first we realized there's a spectrum of homelessness, and it's important to address it as quickly as possible, and that comes to community.
Thanks guys for being here.
And sometimes when the family's not there, your neighbors, people that see what's going to happen, thank you for your support. We have a lot of resources. There's a lot of resources. We agree. And sometimes it's maybe connecting optimism, like, hey, there is hope for you, so you can seek something different than the drugs that maybe grabbed your life and took you down this path. Let's see. Yeah, we just shared some personal experiences. One of the things we realized is it's like permeates our city. It's not like just in an area or two. Like we don't have a Skid Row. It's like all over. It seems like, and also, well, I won't take any more time. I forgot the last thing.
Our group talked a lot about how systemic issues need systemic solutions, and we actually believe that there are not enough resources, that we need to take more of like a housing first approach and just give people what they need. And then we talked about safety. It's okay to think about the safety of people walking, but also the people who are living on the streets also are entitled to safety as well. And then similar to the other group, we talked about homelessness being a spectrum. So you have people who are not just like living chronically homeless, but you have people who maybe live from house to house and don't have a permanent address. And they also like sometimes their needs go unaddressed as well. And then also an affordability crisis is sometimes at the root of what is going on. When people can't afford houses, that's when sometimes homelessness rises. And then I think, we also talked about early prevention as well. And services don't always continue for chronic people.
Okay, next, on this side, if you can. There we go, back in the back over there.
Hello, my name is Ryan. Our group echoes a lot of the comments that were already said. We all come from the heart to help and help up rather than hand out. I think one of the biggest things with all this is the analysis of why someone is homeless, and that being a proactive outreach rather than being reactive, I think is a big deal. And then another point was the barriers to entry to help. So are we reaching people through technology? Is it proactive actually speaking with people? Are we meeting these people where they are at the time that they need the help? Another interesting point that was brought up was even if you try to mitigate, whether you're tearing down trees for shelters or things like that to keep people from being away, people will find a way to find shelter, and so sometimes that can be an issue as well. Thank you.
Hi. So our group had a lot of the same sentiments that everyone else did. It's something that a lot of people experience, especially their lives, friends, family, and it is a symptom of something that is something we can hopefully do something about. And it's rather than pushing people away, making it harder to live, we want to find solutions. Whether it's instead of making it legal to dumpster dive and to not you can't live in your car. We wanted to make it more affordable housing, more food that's available. There's places like Food and Power that can, take food that groceries are going to throw away, and then they give it to people that need it or have a hard time accessing it. Places like that, it doesn't have to break the bank. It can make it so that we can provide for people and make it so that they don't have to live in, make it harder to get out of homelessness, which helps them. It's something that's also helping with. We need help with mental health situations as well. And similar to Washington, they would have a mental health professionals that could go out and help people where the police might go. They would go first instead and help situations like that where that way it takes the burden off the police but also helps the people that need it in those situations. We also talked about how we need to subsidize housing. And it's difficult when developers have a big say in this city, especially when city council doesn't get paid a living wage. Something like those subsidized housing helps people bring where even though you might not be permanently homeless, everyone experiences it whether you're down on your luck. Having that makes it more available for the public and helps people get out of that situation.
On this side, there we go.
Thank you. So I got to be the recorder again. And we talked about, but first of all, I think pretty much everyone at the table had some direct connection to somebody who's experienced homelessness, family member, working with, etc. So it was very real for every person at the table. We kind of categorized, I guess, 3 different types. One is, people who are just hard times, tough situations, something's happened. They just couldn't make that medical payment, and then they couldn't make their rent payment, and now they were on the street. The second category being people struggling and dealing with addiction and mental illness, and that being kind of the primary reason. And then a third category of some people who really just want to be, not receive help. So we kind of categorized 3 different ways. I also heard the importance of whatever situation you're in. It was a little bit of the housing first. I'm not sure that everybody agreed with that at our table, but it was expressed that housing first, or being able to help people, having a house, having a roof over your head is being very important. And one person shared, and I thought this was really powerful, that as their family system is growing a little bit older, they're seeing their own personal safety net shrink. And as a public school teacher who's not necessarily earning a whole ton of money and has a couple of medical crises, what's the situation for me potentially? Recognizing that. And the last thing I think I would say is that we identified this tension of, I'll call it justice and mercy. And when do you respond with, kind of legal response, or, it's not okay to be on the sidewalk, we need to move you, and when and how do you show compassion? Both of those are values that are important, but those can be rather polarizing in this topic. Did I do okay, guys?
Yeah, it was great. I love the way that you stated very clearly values, because that is where we generally start, is on the idea of values. When we start talking, or we have a dialogue with someone, and we want it to be meaningful, we need to figure out where their value is and where we can tie it and have connection with their values. And so I love the way that you said justice and mercy. So there's two classic examples of values. It could be all kinds of different things. It can be equity. It can be, there's just so many different aspects of it. And if you understand, you can talk to that level, you can have a connection with them, and you're hearing them beyond just their words. And that's what's so important to this idea of a dialogue. That's what we're trying to encourage you folks to consider, to get into a dialogue, to feel comfortable about getting into a dialogue. And that's one thing that we do at Braver Angels, is we provide free workshops to give and provide skills for you folks to begin to listen and acknowledge, and what we call pivot, and what we call perspective. So we have some courses that, we love to share. So I just kind of want to highlight that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, so at this point in time, I'm sorry. Go ahead, David.
My name's David Lord, and I was the reporter for this group. A couple of issues that I think came up. I think we had sort of two things. One is we obviously in our communities and our personal lives face homelessness. We'd like to see it disappear. But on the other side of it, the empathy comes in and thinking about the person. So I think it leaves many of us in a very confused state. We talked a little bit, as some of the other groups have said, that we need to be, rather than reactive to the problem, we need to be proactive. And the example that was used is where we have the Springs Rescue Mission, and a client just goes and spends the night there, but the next morning they're back out on the street. And really the answer is going to be the empathy in trying to deal with mental health, alcohol, and jobs. So the proactive is the most. We talked a little bit, we have a wonderful community of nonprofits, and I think sometimes we don't celebrate the good work that is going on because we want the problem. And then we talked about education. It's a very complex problem, and trying to better understand the issue. So those are our comments from the time.
So our table took an approach of just talking about why it matters to us. Personally, I was homeless when I was 18, and so this topic is important to me because I've seen the other side. You never know why you're there or what's going on. And then I also live here downtown, and so it's fun for me to do Jack Quinn's and go and walk with my friends who also live down here. I'm a big man. I'm a little scared too about homeless people, and is something going to happen? Do I have to be concerned? Which down here, her unhoused neighbors, and what that comes with. And then other members of our table have seen the communities die from the cold and have personal relationships. So we didn't talk solutions, but that's why this topic is important and why we want to see solutions come forward.
Hi, I'm Renee Alba again, and I really enjoyed this conversation. I work at a nonprofit that works with unhoused people. So, why is this important to us? For me, it was because I work with these people all the time, and I see the victories, and I see the deaths, and I see it all, and it's a complex issue. Another member of our group talked about the safety for children to be able to play in the park,
out to dinner and restaurants and to feel safe, and that's really important. And for the safety of the people who are living unhoused, to be able to not be frozen overnight, or not to be the victim of crime or they face. So it's two-sided. One thing that one of our members brought up was just after living in California and living with homeless people, like on Skid Row and things like that. Here, it's a different crowd. We see senior citizens, we see families, we see children. It's not the same crowd. It's evolving, and more people who are in families seem to be becoming displaced. Talked a little bit about the challenge of affordable housing and the different levels of homelessness, and we all care and all know that we could do a little more research and learn a little bit more about this information. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Jared. We have a lot of the same concerns that everybody else did, safety, cleanliness. But when we talked about category housing, we talked about when there's somebody who simply just can't afford a home, or is there somebody who doesn't necessarily want to live in a home who needs it? We brought up the idea of limitations we have on providing something. A tiny home, and the regulations that prevent people, us builders, from offering something. We also brought up responses. So when the city or police come through and do a sweep, or if we close off public spaces because those are typical spaces that are used by the unhoused and the homeless, those aren't necessarily productive responses. We need to do something. That's it.
Okay, we have a group over here. You guys even the first time, right? Oh, they're not, oh, spectators, okay, great. Anybody else? Anybody we haven't heard from? Oh, there we go.
My table already went, but my name is Quinn. There's a running joke says Quinn got a question, so I just wanted to carry that on. I wanted to kind of correlate both of those two, and I wanted to know, everyone talks about community. Do you think there's a correlation between homelessness and community, or lack thereof? So I just wanted to pose that question and see if there's any relation to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to share? We have one more minute. Anybody else want to share? Okay, cool. All right, so what we're going to do now here, folks. Whoops. We got somebody over here.
Hi guys, my name's Landon, neighbor as well. And just to begin off with Zuri's comment there, I really think something that, especially as dudes, screw up a lot is that you see things as a pacing contest. And unfortunately, life is competitive. Biological organisms, it's really resources are but at the end of the day, I really think seeing life as one big collaboration is kind of what's going to get us out of a lot of this mess. It's not going to make everything, but yeah, try to think collaborations and how we can use each other for our strengths, because we all want them. No matter what your class, wealth, or taxable kids. That's all I gotta say.
Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks for sharing your time, your little bit of comments or your comments with us. Right now what we're going to do is we're going to take time for your city council members to respond to your comments about tonight's topic of homelessness in the community. They've agreed to each take up to, well, we're not going to put out times, we're just going to watch the clock up there. But we want them to be able to respond to your comments. If they have some questions of some of you folks, clarifying questions, hopefully they'll be able to do that. At the same time, they're going to have some closing comments about tonight's town hall, including what they've learned from this experience, the next steps they would like to take with their fellow councilmen to improve this process. All right, so welcome, have a seat.
All right. Well, I was excited to hear a lot of good comments. I think the key thing is really finding that balance between being a society, you have to have basic rules if it's the Wild Wild West. You just can't have Wild Wild West. So you've got to balance responsibility, requiring people to live up to a standard, but at the same time, you got to provide dignity and honor and respect for someone who's a fellow human being. So, I believe created in the image of Christ. So we have to find that balance, and I think I've heard that almost in every single group, trying to find that place in between. So that was a big thing that I kind of picked up.
Yeah, I completely agree, Dave. I think you're spot on that this is a complex issue, but I think we heard a lot of similar themes and comments from everybody. One of the things that I talk about quite a bit, he's a fly fisherman, we talk about getting upstream of things, right? And this is a situation, this is a topic where if we can figure out how to get upstream of this and solve the problem before it becomes a chronic problem, that's where we start to make some really advanced, in my opinion. And I heard some people sort of support that idea that instead of being reactive to the situation, we need to be proactive. And I think that's one of the challenges that we have as a city and as a community is to find ways to be proactive. Throwing money at it doesn't solve the problem. Being strategic and where and how we address the issue is key. I think of one program in town called Step Springs, which was started in Denver, and it's a men's recovery program for suffering from alcoholism. And that's a program that has been proven to work. It gets people off the street, it puts them in a safe environment, but it holds them accountable. They can't just stay there indefinitely. They've got to work their way through the program and work their way back into productive members of society. And I think it started, well, in Colorado Springs it started in October. It's been in Denver for about 4 or 5 years. Oh, 40 years? I can't count. Those are my comments.
I completely agree with both my colleagues. My tall colleague here to my left drug me into a president's small group called Pathways Beyond, where Pathways Beyond Rescue, meaning we have a rescue mission that can only do so much. And what are we doing around the things the rescue mission can't do? Where's the gap that the rescue mission
can't fill or should fill and doesn't have the funds to fill. We definitely need a rescue mission. We need people out of the cold weather. We need people to have a good meal. We need people to be able to have a bed, but they can only provide so much with the dollars they have. So along this last 2 years of Beyond Rescue, it's opened my eyes to a lot. Again, we have the urban cowboy that you talk about that just doesn't want the help. They're the urban cowboy. They don't want the help. They want to be left alone and do their thing. And then you have the people that are addicted and have mental health issues with addiction that really can't help themselves where they are because of the addiction and the mental health. And then you have the people that are just very down on their luck and need that one housing voucher, that job, that car repair, whatever that looks like. So it's a very complicated issue. And I come from a healthcare background, but it still is very eye-opening to the many complexes of it. But I agree, you can't just keep throwing money at it. We need programs that actually work. We need mental health programs. We have a lot of nonprofits in this town, and we're in the process of trying to bring them all together. And, I did support the no camping in cars because all we were doing was moving people around the city. We weren't actually getting them help. They were just knocking on the door and saying, you gotta move, you gotta move. And so I supported that because now the hot team can actually knock on the door and say, what do you need? Do you need some relief from, I have a fast truck at the county. I can get you a TANF card. I can get you groceries. I can get you in a hotel tonight for a week, whatever it takes. I can get you a housing voucher. I can get you the mental health. And that's why I supported it, because I feel like people are actually going to get the help they need. Those kids need a shower. They need to get to school. They need food in their belly. And living in their car wasn't, for me, the answer. I thought it was much more compassionate to get them the services they need. So again, that's just my perspective of it. It's a very complicated situation. I'm learning every day with my colleague, and more to come. Hopefully, this community will start working closer together on that, regardless of how we feel what's best and what's not best, but to get the right path forward for the people who really need it. Not about my opinion, but who really needs what and how do we get it there.
So I wanted to take a moment to invite Amy Cox up. Amy is the Housing and Homelessness Response Chief, right?
Chief Housing and Homelessness Response
I
Officer.
know, there's so much words.
Okay, I'm not going to sit on this.
We're going to stand up,
I've
right?
got good core strength, but I don't think it's that.
Okay. But anyway, I wanted to bring her up here because I think some of you want to kind of understand. We wanted to give you like a current perspective of what does homelessness look like. And really to start out with, we have over 8,400 people got themselves homeless, right?
Yeah, so we measure homelessness in different ways. And one of the metrics we use is how many people are self-reporting homelessness on their SNAP applications. It's a Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And we have 8,451 people who self-reported homelessness. And that is without, that doesn't renew any additional benefit or faster benefit.
And that's a big number.
That's a big number.
But it could be someone that's couch surfing. It could be someone that just got addicted and they haven't gotten a hold of relatives or they haven't talked to their parents yet. I mean, it could be a number of things to someone who's actually like drug addicted. It's the broad range, and I think that's the first perspective, is that sometimes it's just someone that's on their own.
Most of the times, it's someone who has experienced a crisis.
Yes.
And I think this group has pointed that out fairly well today, really identifying what the different challenges.
And personally, Amy actually has experienced homelessness. So she has first-hand experience. So I really value that she's had participated. Just couldn't pay the rent.
Yeah, well, yeah. I grew up as with a homeless teenage mother, so I grew up in Southeast Colorado.
So then we kind of have a level of people that are kind of living more regularly on the street. And that's where we get into the point of time count and some other counts and stuff like that. We're looking at roughly about 1,400 or something? Or?
The point in time count numbers
numbers will be released tomorrow, and they do show a decrease. It's another way in which we measure. It's a snapshot. On one night, end of January, we do a count. We see who's in shelters and who's in transitional housing programs, and we look at who, we do a survey of people who are living in shelter. That number does show a decline. There are a variety of reasons for that, and we'll have more information that comes out about that tomorrow.
And the third is really kind of with the use of HMIS, which is kind of a reporting thing. So when we have social workers and other agencies and stuff get involved, they take information from these people and we put it into this database that's run by the state. And that's the, I don't know what HMIS stands for.
So it's the Homeless Management Information System. I think where we want to take this, what we heard is the need for systemic solutions and not response. And so the city has been really, really good at responding. We write citations. We do outreach through our fire department. We clean up trash.
We provide a cot.
We help support shelters. What we have done in the last, mostly in the last 6 months, is we're moving towards taking over our continuum of care. So we're looking at actually building a more robust data system. We do not use data very well in our community. We wait for annual reports. We're going to build that data system, create more data transparency, and bring more regional leadership to the issue. That means a regional plan. That means getting
Who here has
extreme
ever heard of
services.
continuum of care? Wow, that's more than I thought. Because I think most people don't even know it. But yet, the continuum of care in most cities is the lead organization that is out front. And I don't think we've had that opportunity in our city to have that. So there's some changes that have just taken place. Actually, they will take official effect July 1st, right?
Right, so July 1st, you'll begin to see more outreach for membership, more convening on this issue, and more attention to those upstream solutions that Ryan was.
But United Way is picking up the lead
Yeah,
with
United,
the city.
yeah, so it's a partnership between the United Way and the City of Colorado Springs to provide the system leadership, right? It's to provide the data system, it's to provide the, you have to apply, you submit applications to HUD. So we're going to take that responsibility on and bring greater accountability to the system.
I think the big piece, just to reiterate here, is as I've worked with Amy quite a bit, it's the conversation has really turned to how do we get movement? We've had some facilities that have had less than 7% of their population actually transition. 7% is a big one. So we're trying to figure out a way to how do we improve that, right? How do we get people to define a path out of homelessness, and how do we accelerate those things? And we're looking at every agency. Officially, Amy is now the point person, and so all departments around homelessness are to coordinate with Amy directly. Even that hasn't happened. So these things have taken a while to kind of pull together. And so she will be coordinating with the fire department and with the police and all these other agencies. She will be the point of the spear to get this thing done. Go Amy!
Thank you.
And we'll both be around, and Amy will be around afterwards to kind of ask more questions and stuff about as we kind of move forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, before we finish the town hall tonight, we'd like to suggest some possible steps with Brave Angel, this group that currently is working with the city council members. So you can learn more about Brave Angels by visiting our website. As a matter of fact, there are some brochures at the top of your tables right there. You can subscribe to our newsletter, read about our platform. We have a lot of different events. And again, we mentioned the fact that we have debates, e-courses, workshops, a lot of different things that you can do to become more effective at communicating. Okay? So if not already a member, it's only $12 a year, so don't beat that. Another thing, on your table, please take the time. This is very important to us. Brave Angels does evaluations at the end of our events, and all you have to do is just take your smartphone, capture that, We use these statistics. It's huge for us. It's also on the table too, by the way, if you need to get the OCR. As a matter of fact, we just landed a huge grant from the Coors Foundation because of the fact that we are doing this work. They're seeing the results of this. In other words, we're able to show these evaluations, how people are responding, how we're moving the needle, so to speak. So please, spend the time, take a picture of it. It won't take very long to do the evaluation. I like to ask, let's see, we're running pretty short on time here, so just a couple of minutes here. I'd like to ask you to share with us one more time, just one or two people. This time your response to a checkout question. What are you taking with you from our gathering time? What would you like to share? Is there something you got out of tonight that you didn't expect or that you really appreciated? Anybody want to raise their hand and make a comment?
I appreciated that we heard from people that may not generally have an opportunity to speak to the council.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else?
I am pleasantly surprised that I am in a room full of like-minded people. And because I have not experienced polarization at all in this group in this discussion tonight. So I just wanted to say thank you because we walk around this community as to just being, I'm the only one that thinks this way, what can I do? But now hearing everybody and different topics, it's like, oh, they said the same thing. Oh, you said the same thing as well. Oh, you said the same thing. It's very refreshing and great, and I hope we can take this information tonight and move forward in spreading the knowledge to other community members and getting more people in your neighborhoods involved in the same topics.
Thank you. Great, thank you very much. Anybody else? We have time for one more question if you have some. Anybody else want to make a statement? All right. Okay. So, a couple of things here. I want to thank some people. First off, we want to thank the Colorado Springs at-large council members for hosting this town hall. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your participation, for being here, for actually being the runners for the mic. That was pretty cool. Also in attendance tonight, City Commissioner Nancy Henson, District 5, I think is here somewhere. There she is. Emily Evans, Natalie Lavelle, Chelsea Ogondic, Amy, thank you very much, Alex, and Samuel Friedman. Alex has been around the room. Sam registered you in, and Alex is somewhere. He's been taking your picture all over the place. There he is. He's the communications person.
Yeah, we really couldn't have done it with these two guys. These two guys are our main staff at council. And Sam kind of is our filter. He kind of, everything goes through Sam. Every story goes through Sam. And then Alex does this great job representing us out on social media and other aspects. So.
Also, we want to thank again the YMCA. It's great having this facility, the tables, everything else set up. Very much appreciate that. Okay, it's great. Also, we have quite a few Braver Angel volunteers here. That's what makes us work, right? We're able to bring people from all over to work and put something like this together, but also to attend, to be within the different groups. I mentioned we have a lot of different workshops and things like that. They actually moderate and actually work with those skills workshops, right? We also, of course, want to thank all of you. You are the community. You have a chance to voice, I hope, tonight. I hope we've had something to where you're able to feel heard tonight. That's important. That's what we're after. To get you that place, in that place to where you feel, hey, I'm reading the newspaper, this is what they're saying. These people are with you tonight. But at the same time, I really appreciate the fact that they're able to directly communicate and have shared time with you at your different tables. These are your neighbors, folks, right? So very much appreciate all of you being here, but very much appreciate all of you participating as well. So with that, I want to thank everybody for attending tonight. Please drive home safely. David?
Just a final comment. This is something we experimented with. And so I want to know, Lynette wants to know, and Brian wants to know, or Brian is, how your experience was. So if you've got a moment, just take some time to come up and just share that. You know, we really appreciate it so that we can do better, because we have another one coming July 27th. July 27th. So that's the plan. All right.